It's time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and I am honored to be able to sit down in the wee early hours of a morning. Not necessarily for you as you're listening to this, but it is for Shaun Barrowes and I as we talk. Morning, Shaun. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How you doing, Richie?
I am well and excited to be able to chat with you about all things. I know that you're super hyped up on a book
Yep.
series technically. So I can let the pressure, the energy off about that. That will be the first thing that we'll talk about as soon as you tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me where you live. Tell me your age. Give me some context about who that existential question of who is Shaun Barrowes.
That is a good question. Well, no, I live in Utah. I moved back to Utah after traveling around and living all over the place, and just settled here in Spanish Fork, Utah. One of my favorite towns in the USA. And I'm 43. I've been in the music business for 28 years. So uh, I've always wanted to be, a full-time musician, singer, songwriter, storyteller. That's always been kind of my passion, and so I've made it happen through whatever means necessary. But I've always had tours and albums and new projects to work on. So
Pause real
yeah, I
quick.
mean,
28 and being 43 with my Jordan School District education lets me know you started at 15. How does one find himself in the music industry at the age of 15?
well, when I say music industry, I mean I recorded an album and released it and started to perform. But I was definitely on the outside of the industry until I joined in with Sony probably about 6 years later, 7 years later. So so yeah, those first 7 years. I mean, of course, there was 2 years when I was on a mission, so I don't
Okay.
really.
Of
But
course,
besides
but now
that,
I
yeah,
need to know about that. You've introduced that. Where did you go?
I served in Peru.
Okay. Big music scene down in Peru, Shaun?
Not really. No, I wish I could find some music gigs down there just to say an excuse to go back down to Peru. But I mean, from what I saw, there was maybe some musicians in the airport, and outside of that, I don't remember seeing any live musicians really anywhere.
Were you able to incorporate music at all on your mission? I know we've had other guests in here. David Archuleta who talks about how,
Yeah.
that's a whole different sort of scenario. But he was able to really just perform a great deal of his mission, and his name is escaping me right now. But he has his concert every year in Salt Lake where he talks about he was able to he sat at a park and played guitar to be able to attract people to talk to him to talk about the gospel. Why can't I think of what his name is?
Michael McLean, maybe,
No,
or
no, no,
Kurt
no.
Bester.
Kurt Bester is who I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah.
when he served his mission, he just played the guitar.
Yeah, we definitely did. We held our probably monthly firesides, musical firesides that we would do, where I rounded up two other singers and we kind of just did some harmonized versions of hymns and stuff like that. We didn't venture out too far from just the usual hymns, but it was still like, yeah, here's three white guys who can sing.
And the Peruvians are like, what is this? Are they in the FBI? Is this a trick? Is that what this is? So,
You
so,
know?
so you were able to incorporate some of it. How was the mission in general? Pretty good experience?
It, yes, it was excellent experience. I mean, it was unbeatable. Just so many things that I learned from it on service, on growing up, on being responsible. There's so many things that you learn on a mission, even just on the secular side of it. Just how to become an adult that's responsible and contribute to society.
Mhm.
And then on the spiritual side, of course, yeah, there's always lessons that I still apply in my daily life as a dad now and as a husband. All
Congratulations
those
on both of those. Give me one of those things that maybe you learned on your mission that you still do now or you apply now.
I would say routine is always big. I mean, just the daily scripture study and why that's so important, because you really deviate if you go too long without your daily fix of scripture study and things like that. Then it's really easy to forget.
Yeah.
And no matter how many years you put into it, how many times you've read things, it's really easy to forget. It's so I feel like that. There's also just the overcoming hardships, and trials, because on the mission, your trials seem, now they seem a little more trivial. That like, oh, I just didn't get a baptism that week or something. But in the moment when you're in it, you're like, man, I failed this. I failed this person. I failed this
Mhm.
family. You kind of just you hold that weight. So I feel like the trials of it, we're the trials just get harder and harder with each year,
Yeah.
and knowing how to see through that and say, oh, the eternal perspective is this. I mean, this is the life is short and it's going to have lots of issues and hard things.
Am
And
I to glean from that then that the music industry has hardships in it? I thought everyone just sort of decided and then went for it.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's butterflies and rainbows.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, good. So my view isn't wrong. You just were talking. So you get home from the mission. Now I got a question about this. We talk about this a lot in the cultural hall. I'm an artistic person who loves the arts, and you and I are of the literal exact generation. I also am the same age as you, and it seems in our lifetime within the church, it has changed considerably from hey, you are the breadwinner that does this, and here is the ideal, to
Right.
now where they're like, listen, if you got talents and we live in a gig economy where you can make these things work, you can be able to care for, just don't shirk the responsibilities. How did you make the decision now, almost 25 years ago, to come home and go, yeah, this is more than just me and two white guys singing in Peru. This is life. Let's do this.
Yeah, I know that was. I kind of always wondered, like, am I going to be able to make enough? Am I going to be able to be a breadwinner, or am I
Mhm.
going to have to at some point take on a day job? I always, avoided that as at all possible costs. There was everyone was telling me to have a plan B, and I always just
Mhm.
say I don't want a plan B, because then plan B becomes plan A. So plan A is it. I burned the ships. I traveled to the battlefront and burned the ships. I felt like I just had to figure it out. That's why I did get married later. I was 37 when I got married,
Okay.
and I just took a lot longer to do the touring and building the fan bases and figuring things out with the music scene, that I wanted to make sure that by the time I got married, I was like, okay, I have at least something to offer,
Mm.
not just, hey, come and tour with me on the couches of my friends.
What, you don't think she would have accepted that offer, huh, babe? Listen to this plan. Hold on to your horses here. I got this plan where I'm going to perform. It'll be 7 of us in a sweaty van where we won't be able to shower very much because sometimes we'll have to sleep in that van, and then when we're not, we're gonna make instant friends with people that we may or may not be able to trust, and sleep on maybe their couch if we're lucky, but more than likely their floor or somewhere else that they said, oh, you could probably sleep there and not get erupted. Would you like to come? How about you hitching your life to that wagon? Something like
Yeah.
that, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've taken my wife to a few of my gig trips, and of course we had to have nice hotels. It couldn't even
Sure.
be Motel 6 or
Sure.
Super 8 kind of level. Like, I feel like certain people just have that standard, and I mean, when she got married, she kind of expected that too, because I was already established. So she's like, oh, he's not going to be the Motel 6 touring
Mhm.
artist. But yeah, you're right. Like when I was 25 and touring, then it was really whatever you could make work. Basically living out of your car. Your
Yeah.
suitcases were there, and you're just opening it up, and like, wherever I get to sleep, I had an air mattress that would just blow up somewhere and lay down on someone's floor.
So give me an idea. You're talking about touring and performing and traveling and all these things. Are you solo act? Are you part of a band that is running out there? I know you've been able to perform with the likes of like Imagine Dragons, Lindsey Stirling, just to name a couple that I know listeners of the Cultural Hall would recognize. But like, what's your bit? What do you do?
Uh, I mostly do have a band. I would say usually we have a four-piece. I've done some solo tours. I think my very first tour was solo, just me on the piano, and it was nice that I have that capability, because
Hmm.
there were a lot of events and things that couldn't pay enough for a full band.
Sure.
So in those moments, I was like, yeah, I can just come over there solo, or I have all the charts and lead sheets, and I can just find someone locally to jump on the gig as a guitarist and do a duo. Um, I've done a lot of mixed ensembles, I would say, from duo, trio, but probably the majority of them have been quartet.
Yeah.
Guitar, bass, drums, and keys.
Now, are you
That's
piano? Are you piano because mom said, "Listen, we are a Mormon family, and Mormon families, you play the piano, whether
that's
or
right.
not you like it is not a question I asked. We have that piano in that family room. You will play it. Is it that sort of thing?"
That's definitely how it started, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, my family took it one step farther because we were definitely like an Osmond or Von Trapp kind of family. We would,
Really?
as a family, perform for. We lived in Maryland and Alaska, but we were in the Army, and so we'd perform for all the different churches, the Lutherans and the Adventists and the Baptists and everything else. We would come as guests as a family. With my mom would have this German guitar called a lute,
Okay.
and we'd play this German guitar, and the whole family would gather around and we'd all sing. So
now, does that give you an opportunity? Because you're saying that's how it began, and I want to get into that a little bit. But does that, as you're touring to different churches, is that an opportunity for discussion within your family where it's like, hey, these are different people and we love everyone? Or is it more of a, we are going to their house of worship and be ready to answer questions because we'd love to share the gospel with them and bring them that way? What was the interaction like?
I would say we definitely went with the missionary spirit of like, let's see if we can convince them or answer questions.
Mhm.
But I mean, they were also at the same time always very open to saying like, we want to understand them too and see where they're coming from. And these are all very good people.
Mhm.
And so we always had that mindset of like, yes, they'll probably ask us questions because we are a little different,
Mhm.
but at the same time, we were, we want to, we definitely want to get to know them and feel like we are compassionate on their scenarios and things like that.
Now, is this mom and your side of the kids in the family, and dad's like, I'm in the Army, leave me alone? Or did dad join in the music?
He was all about it. He was actually all about it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He had his hard military moments, but he grew up in a musical family himself, and so for him it was nostalgic, I think.
So is he and your mom, are they converts? Did they come to the church through each other? Pioneer stock? What was family and upbringing like that?
Pioneer stock, yeah.
Okay.
I think both sides. My mom's side was like they left and came back, and so my grandma was the convert over there. My dad's side, it goes all the way back to like Truman Angel, who was the architect of the tabernacle and I think the Salt Lake Temple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've got on my dad's side they're all the pioneers. On my mom's side there are pioneers too. They just there's a group that left, but on her side there's also John Taylor, who was one of my ancestors.
Wow, that's cool. Kind of a fun upbringing. Let's take a break real quick. When we come back in the second block, I promise you we are going to talk about a dystopian book series, but we haven't made it that way yet, so we'll get there. I promise you. We'll do that coming back in the second block of the Cultural Hall. Here in the second block of the Cultural Hall, remember, you can always send us an email, contact@theculturalhall.com. It's a way for you to say, you know what, that Shaun guy, I really like him. Or, and the off chance that you would feel something like, that Shaun guy, what? You could send that in an email as well. It's contact@theculturalhall.com. You can send comments about the show. You can say, hey, Richie, I have this great guest. I would love for you to talk to them on the show. You could even say something like, Shaun said something about Alaska, and you never asked him about living in Alaska. Why didn't you do that? And we can have that conversation as well. It's contact@theculturalhall.com. And that is what I want to start asking you about is Alaska. A little different. I want to know what your life, what the gospel, all the things. What is Alaska like for a young Shaun Barrowes?
So I was there for junior high, and I was also there for my youngest years. So we moved away to Maryland and then back to Alaska. It was a really pretty state. It's definitely the last frontier. There's definitely a lot of wilderness out there. You can just walk for weeks and weeks and never find a person.
Mm-hmm.
So the wildlife and the outdoorsy side of it's really amazing in those 4 to 5 month span windows where
when there's sunlight.
And sunlight. Yeah. So we had some fun summers. I love like the playing baseball all night long. We do that where it's like the sun never goes down, so we just keep on playing.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of it, of course, there's the flip side. And December 21st, the sun doesn't even come up. It's just a dark day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Christmas was always just a dark Christmas. There's no sun. Those were definitely the bleak winters. So I definitely wouldn't recommend visiting in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But the summertime, between May and September, those are the pretty months where you'll see the bald eagles. You might catch yourself in front of a bear.
Yeah.
There's moose. The moose would come to our front yard.
Yeah, moose are like dogs, essentially, in Alaska, right?
Yeah, although they can be scary. So they're huge. They're massive. they're bigger than horses. They're probably like twice the size of a horse. And my dog would bark at it fearlessly. And I had a mini dachshund.
Go get him, dachshund, mini dachshund. Was it a difficult place where you have artistic tendencies to be like, wait a minute, this Shaun kid, he needs to find a different place because there aren't a lot of people like me, or it didn't matter because you were a young enough kid?
I mean, I was taking lessons, and there was, at least in the military, there was a really good piano teacher.
Okay.
So that was the one benefit there. Besides that, there weren't a lot of options for other lessons. It's kind of, it's a lot like being in a remote small town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There definitely wasn't performance opportunities outside of your own school and maybe the local college. But it's a fisher town. Still, like, I mean, they have businesses and stuff in Anchorage, but Anchorage is still a pretty small town, and there not a lot of opportunities or examples there. But I would say it definitely was nice that I moved to Utah for high school, where there's at least some more opportunities and teachers and things like that I could learn from.
Was it a whiplash for you culturally, where likely if you were in a district, maybe even in Alaska, that would be a significant deal, but being a member of the church, you go from the last frontier and the kooky people down the street, those folks are our same faith, and taking the loot to the Lutheran and Methodist church, and then you come to Utah and it's like everyone is like me, every single person.
It was, and this is also in the 90s, where Spanish Fork, Utah was kind of that one horse town where 99.9% were active LDS.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday was just shut down in Utah County. There wasn't anything happening anywhere except for the one gas station that still sold sacrament bread. There was nothing else.
and they did. They had it right by the door.
That's right.
The one guy could sort of slink in with his sunglasses on. I'll take one, please, and make it quick. Let's go. And then to the church because he forgot. That's hilarious.
That was definitely a culture shock. It was also just, I mean, Utah is not very diverse in race either. Coming from Alaska, where my best friends were Samoan and Black, and in Maryland, like Puerto Rican. My best friend was Puerto Rican. And then I come to Utah, where it's like everybody's white. There's like not even, at that time, it was just, the town was just all white. The school was all white. And it was just weird to be that, even though, it's like, okay, I guess that's me, but it's still just the non-diversity was always a whiplash. The fact that everybody was LDS, all the cool kids were talking about the Book of Mormon. I was like, that was really strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, this is the football captain over here and the baseball captain, and they're going to seminary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was it was actually really good for me too, because the cool kids went on missions.
Yeah.
And that was, that helped encourage me to say, oh, it's cool to go on a mission,
Yeah. Was it a tough choice for you at all?
No, I think it would have been if I had lived somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was always a little bit of a rebellious spirit in junior high, and even after. I've always kind of had that rebellious spirit a little bit to me. But being around the cool kids that I admired a lot, and I thought they were very talented and intelligent, and they were going on missions, and so I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going. I'm excited to go now. And it really is all about the friends you make,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting you talk about being around the cool kids. I can't imagine that there's a cooler kids scene, in the last 20 years than American Idol, and you had the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, what is that experience like? And your season 7, so you'll forgive me that I don't know. Are you pre or post Archuleta?
Same year.
Same year as Archuleta. Okay.
I know David, yeah. So David and I flew back and forth together, yeah.
So were you shadow cast by David Archuleta?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No hesitation. Oh yeah. Yes, of course.
I mean, I was 10 years older than him, and so I was the old man compared to him. He was the young kid, the doe-eyed kid with the all the girls were
Sure.
crushing on him. And here I'm like, what about me? I'm also a Mormon kid. It's like, no, we want to vote for him.
well, and you bring that up, but I remember the media in the state of Utah, and maybe it was as he got further along in the rounds, he was the Mormon darling. I can't imagine how frustrating that might have been, wrongly placed at faith, being like, guys, look, hey, same, I got the CTR ring, I'm wearing the thing, like all of that.
I know.
Then it went that way. Talk to me more about that experience.
I mean, it was funny. I just feel like I thought I could be the Mormon darling, like you said. Like I thought I could just totally be. Maybe there's room for more than one, one piece of pie here or something like that. But apparently, because he was in high school, he was allowed to be this innocent kid. It just made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
To get behind him, and he was, of course, also getting a lot more praise from the judges because he was the type of personality they wanted for their show. They loved having the high school kids, represented. And I didn't really represent a demographic because I was the singer songwriter trying to make it, and not a lot of people like me out there. Oh, hey.
Oh, we've got a young one with us.
I know. Yeah, my daughter came down. She's supposed to be sleeping right now, huh? It's really early in the morning. You were supposed to be in bed still sleeping. But yeah, it was still like a really cool experience, I would say overall. Just getting like that validation still, and the judges were still like, I don't know. I mean, it still gave me that. I when it came down to like who they were going to vote for, I was like, okay, I get it. I had to really, like, I was trying to prove myself, and I was competing, and I mean, in the end, David had the right sound and look and things like that they were going for.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, and I think that sometimes people sort of forget this, but when you look at any of those shows, and I think it's a way to really sort of change the way that you look at it, is that it is that they are looking, this show has a personality just like your sitcom has a personality, and they want that particular person, right, or feel or fit. It very rarely is that person who made it this far or win. I mean, they can't do it talentless for sure, but it is a multitude of talent, and they are just sort of finding that, that relational fit for their program.
Oh yeah. And every season was a little bit different. Like one season they definitely wanted a rocker to win. One season they wanted a country star to win, but they definitely like Daughtry was the perfect fit because he was the dad. He was like he had a story that they could tell and everybody could relate to. It's like, oh, he adopted his new wife's kids and things like that. So it was something that you could relate to. They needed that story from everybody who had a chance at winning. And David had his vocal cord paralysis that he talked about. There's, if you're a cancer survivor, or, you have some things that you could tell, like, oh yeah, I overcame this adversity to be here. They love those kind of stories, the single moms and things like that. And for me at that time, I was just a traveling musician trying to make it. I mean, the people who could relate to me were those who were living in LA, but outside of that, not really.
Is there a fraternity of sorts of American Idol folk where y'all get together once a year at a house in West Hollywood and go, hey, how's it going? No. Is there a connection because you were there, or has it been so many years and so many seasons that it's like, well, okay, that was cool. He did that.
Yeah. I don't think there ever really was. I've kept in touch with a couple of the friends that I made a little bit, but really, yeah. I mean, I haven't talked to David in years. Brooke White was also my season, and I haven't talked to her in years.
Also another member of the church, yeah.
I don't feel like the musicians are really bad about that kind of thing. I feel like musicians are more isolated and just lonely people. Really, they do their own thing. We meet up and we gather when when there's a reason for it, a specific like gig that brought us together or something, but we don't proactively seek it out and have these reunions and things. I feel like musicians, they prefer to be by themselves.
Yeah. You say lonely and maybe something like that. I always like the term tortured, that everyone talks about, the tortured musician. That to me is sort of a actually pretty accurate description of the musician's journey, right? It is always, no matter who you meet, no matter how successful it is, there is something that causes them to continue to going when maybe they should have actually stopped, but that they keep pushing through because they quite frankly look at themselves and go, I don't know anything else that I could be even remotely this passionate about.
Yeah, right. You're right. The tortured musician is a good example. Definitely a good description. I feel like we're all we're all seeking for that. I think it's a therapy for me to create music,
Mhm.
and it's something that I rely on. And if I don't have it, yeah, what else would I do? It just doesn't feel like there'd be anything else. There's a there's definitely that constant need to
Mhm.
be creating and releasing and distributing that creation.
And and
So
and it's fascinating to me the people that don't understand that, because you either do or you don't, right? There's not people that are like, I sort of get it. There are the people that go, oh man, everything that you just said, Sean, I feel every bit of that. And the other people that are like, yeah, but Sean, why don't you just do something else?
I
And
know, right?
you're like, you clearly don't understand this. Um,
Yeah,
when you
right.
met, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. Go ahead.
When you mentioned Daughtry, you mentioned that he brought in some kids into his life, and people that are Patreon saints of the Cultural Hall are entertained by your daughter as she's been performing in the background, kind of meandering about. I knew I wanted to get to it, but let's get to it now. Talk to me a little bit about being married now, a little later in life, member of the church, probably a little bit of judgment on you that it took you that long, and then what it's like being a dad now and doing this whole thing.
Right. And I probably got more judgment being the older single guy for the longest time. And now it's like, oh, you're one of us again.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So
You-
so what was that like where when you were dating? Because you said 37, so this is not many years ago that you stepped from singledom to marriedhood. Uh,
yeah.
Judgment by people that you would date, where they'd be like, "Yeah, but what are we doing?" Or were you established enough that you didn't catch that?
I think I got I didn't really feel that so much from the ones that I dated, but if I went to a singles ward, or if I went to a family ward, especially
Hmm.
when I was like 33 and single or 35 and single, they'd be like, "Wait a minute, you're still single? Well, let me set you up with somebody to fix that right away. We got to fix that right away. I know somebody who's single."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't like anybody that was like anywhere close to a match to me. It was just that was the only qualification was you're single and she's single. Let's just go
Yes.
ahead and carry on.
The worst. So I do theater. My sister said, "Hey, I want to set you up," because I got married for the first time at 30, and right before I met my then or my now ex-wife, my sister set me up on a date, and exactly what you're saying, where she was like, "You perform theater. She likes theater. You should go out on a date." And I just was like, "Is that what this is? Are we doing this right now?" It was
Yeah.
abysmal. It was the worst kind of experience I could have ever imagined. But you obviously found the one, so talk to me a little bit about that.
She was the perfect fit. I mean, we were on a music video shoot together. That's how we met.
Okay.
And it was just one of those. I think it was just I didn't ever really up to that point. I'd never done these parody videos and parody songs. And I'm like I'm a true artist. I got to be
Yeah.
pure and
Yeah.
all that. And just for some reason decided to do this one. I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
this seems like I just want to socialize. This would be kind of a fun social experiment. So I went on this video shoot for a guy named RJ Edos. He had his Edos Media a YouTube channel, and he wanted to do "Can't Stop the Feeling" by Justin Timberlake. So
Okay.
this was in 2016. In 2016, he had this idea to do this, and I would be dressed up as the Mad Hatter.
Uh-huh.
So it was a
Which
Disney
which
parody.
which typecast, by the way, as far as the
That's
casting.
right.
So props to him.
I
You
know.
got the hair, and if I'm being honest, between friends, a little bit of that crazy look. So I don't think that he
That's
could
right.
have done
I
better.
fit right in. I
Yes.
fit right in. And my wife was Princess Jasmine for this, which also is the right look for her because
Oh,
she's got the half Asian look, so she already kind of looks a little Middle Eastern.
okay. Okay.
So she was dressed up as Princess Jasmine, and she was a dancer in this, and I was the singer for it. Um, Turns out that on this shoot, I not only met her, but I also met two of my closest friends from it. And it was just like this really magical shoot where like everybody became really close friends
Mhm.
and stayed that way. And she was, so she was dancing and I was singing in this thing and we were all, all day shoots. And I got my time to talk to her a little bit here and there. Didn't really do anything other than just like, oh yeah, hey, I'm kind of staying focused to be the Mad Hatter for this video, but what do you do? And these are the things. And then after the shoot was done, I reached out to her on Facebook and said, we should hang out sometime. And then she said, well, I'm going to Florida for a few months to be in this Disney World internship.
Mhm.
She did the Disney internship thing for BYU, and then when I get back, she said we could hang out. So as those months progressed, when it came closer to the time of her coming back, I'm like, you know what? We don't need to hang out. Let's just go on a date. And I just kind of was a little more forward about it.
Well, look at
So I'm like,
you,
you know,
Shaun.
yeah. And she was impressed by it. She liked it that I was just, forward about it. And just said, let's just go on a date and, call it a date. Not a hangout session, not us kind of jamming on the piano or something like that. Like
Mhm.
I made that excuse in the beginning, like, yeah, we could just jam on the piano sometime and you can kind of just sing along. And she's not really a singer, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, you're like, whatever I can suggest here that means I can follow up on that in the future. And then you're like, let's go on a date. So I have to know, you pushed for it. What did you guys end up doing?
We went on a date. So we went to this concert. It was just it was a 9/11 tribute that my friend was putting on
Okay.
at the Cubby Center. And then it turns out he also asked me to perform at it. So I took her to a date where I actually performed too. So I didn't really mean to do it that way. But it just ended up being that way. It was like, okay, well, I'm not really trying to be pretentious here,
Yeah.
but
Right.
he asked me to perform, so we're already here, and
Yep.
I got to jump on the piano and sing a few
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah. Listen, I don't want to. I don't want to on this date that I asked you very forcefully on, but I got to go share these innate talents and abilities that I've been given. It just so happens that you're here, so go ahead and sit here. I'm gonna go up there. I'll come back. I'll be right. Like 4 songs max, babe. I'll be right back. Well, probably not babe at that point, and then come back.
Yeah,
But it
it,
worked.
it worked. It was actually like just the right combination, I guess, because she was impressed by it. I wasn't trying to be impressive, but I just sang and played, and she
Mhm.
was like, "Wow, this guy's really good," and she just really started to fall for me. And my parents showed up at the same concert.
Oh,
I had no
no.
idea they were coming, so they were there, like, "Hey, Shaun, who's this?" I'm like, "Oh, this is my date.
Yeah. This is
These
this
are
is
my
my
parents."
first date. Don't embarrass me.
They were good about it. They're good at reading. My mom is, at least. My
Yeah.
mom's really good at reading the scene. My dad, not so much, but my mom will pull him away before he can embarrass himself.
I love that. The grace you were trying to extend to your dad, and then you're just like, actually, no, not him. My mom. My mom can really read it, and she has quick arms if he starts to say
That's right.
something. That's great. That's awesome. As I was thinking about as you were talking, her being the Jasmine and the whole thing, I was really hoping that the follow-up sounded something like you either calling her up or messaging her and being like, "Do you trust me?" And her saying, "What? Do you trust me?" And then you
That's
take
right.
her on a magical ride on a carpet. So
That would have been even better, right? I know. Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
Shaun, let's take another break. When we come back, I promise you we will get to a dystopian book series. What? Because there's only 3 blocks to the Cultural Hall, and that's what I want to talk about with you next. We'll come back and do that in just a minute. Here in the 3rd block of the Cultural Hall, a few of you have done what I asked, and I love that you have. I would love it if you, wherever you listen to this, if there is a review option that you tell people about the things that you enjoy about the Cultural Hall. It's a great chance for you to give a little bit of depth to your gratitude, your adority. I'll take that word of the show. People go, what is this Cultural Hall thing? And then they're able to read your words and go, oh, that's the very thing that is missing from my life. So if the platform which you listen to the Cultural Hall allows you to review, please take that moment and share a review so that others might join you on the back row. So, Shaun, here's the thing. We've talked a lot about, being in Alaska, Maryland, and traveling in the church and mission and all the things and music. And then you have a book. And to me, that's like, well, wait a minute, stay in your lane, Shaun. What are we doing here? Talk to me a little bit about where we went from, and it's all creative, but it is very much a different skill set to go from music to book. What are we doing? What's going on?
I mean, I feel like with my music, where it segued more naturally is I've always been a storyteller with my music.
Okay.
And I've also always written my own stories and things, but I just never had an outlet for them. I just kind of figured, oh, it's kind of a fun little short story or whatever else. I mean, actually, the very first book that I wrote was in 3rd grade, and it was like probably all one sentence, and 100 pages of one sentence,
Sure.
and then,
Yeah.
but This time around, like I just had this idea. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if I could finally pair my music with a story? I've been looking for the right movie to do that too all these
Mm-hmm.
years. Wanted to create a musical like Moulin Rouge, but the opportunity never presented itself. And then I just, as I was coming back from a shoot with a movie, I was working on this animated film as the composer,
Mm-hmm.
and I had, the creative flow was already there. I was on this flight back from Louisiana. I was sitting there staring at the seat in front of me, doing nothing, and I was bored. And in that moment of boredom, an idea popped in my head. Like, what about this premise? What about this storyline? Like, I've never heard of anybody doing anything like this. And then I decided to pull out my laptop and write 20 to 30 pages right then and there, like the
Wow.
world building.
Mm-hmm.
So it just flowed right out. It was a very natural world building moment of, here's a premise that I don't think anybody's ever done before. And I expounded on that. So when I landed, I told my wife about it and said, I have this story idea I want to try out. What do you think? And she was excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
She was all excited about this idea. And I decided, let me do a little more research to see if anybody has done this story now that I'm
Sure.
landed. And I couldn't find anything. So no matter how much I researched it, I found that nobody had ever really touched this setting before. The integration of music into a world building like this, based on the science of sound, where people would use their voices as kind of their abilities, their power source, but it was based on sound, on science, on acoustics, not on like just some magical source, like a fantasy. This is more science fiction. I reached out to a PhD in acoustics and then just started asking him a bunch of questions like, can I do this? Is this possible? In 100 years in the future, is it possible we might reach this? Things like that I was just kind of going over and over again, and built out this world. I took these courses from Brandon Sanderson, who's all about world building, right?
Yeah.
He's another local here in Utah, good Mormon author. And he's really talented at world building. And so I learned from him on like how to really expound that. Took courses from Neil Gaiman on character building, and then I read just a ton of books from Orson Scott Card, who's one of my other favorites. And Orson Scott Card is the one who probably got me into reading and literature in the first place.
With Ender's Game.
Ender's Game, yep.
Yeah.
Ender's Game was it's still one of my all-time favorite series that I've read. And so yeah, I would say in the end, my book came across as like an Ender's Game with a little bit of a Hunger's Game meets John Carter of Mars. That's kind of the breadth there. But it's a musical. It's based, so a Wizard of Oz level musical,
Mm-hmm.
hero's journey kind of story. And it just the music was so natural to it. I already had a lot of the songs that I could kind of adapt to it. I only wrote a couple new ones for this, but most of them were repurposed because I had these songs that were already done that in my opinion withstood the test of time. They were still in my forefront of my mind, still catchy, still songs that I felt like could be big songs, and they fit so perfectly with this world that I was building that I just repurposed a lot of them for this and created this 9-song album to go with the full book.
Mm-hmm.
That was book one of a 5-book series.
So when I first heard about this, and you'll forgive me, but maybe I represent the thought process of other people. I was like, I don't understand how this works exactly, and this is what I pictured, and I think you'll appreciate this. Is I thought it was like watching Wizard of Oz and then hitting play at the first lion's roar of Pink Floyd's The Wall, and that would be like how I would be able to do it. Explain how you're able to, because it is a written text, how you're able to do what it is that you're talking about.
Well, so this is where the preferred medium is the audiobook. And the audiobook is an easy answer. The musical score and the songs all line up exactly. With the book itself, with the written text, the lyrics are in there. And just like a Lord of the Rings. When you read the Lord of the Rings, there are songs and poems in there that Tolkien inserted, but you don't actually know what those sound like.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, it's here's a poem basically you can read that's pertinent to the story. And if you want to, you can go to Spotify or you can go to YouTube or Apple Music or whatever else and listen to the song if you want to, but you don't have to. It's just it's bonus bonus material at that point. But if you listen to the audiobook, you'll hear the musical score, you'll hear all the different actors. You'll kind of hear how the whole world sounded to me in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the audiobook is definitely the preferred method for me. Is like as I created it, I was hearing it the whole time more than I was seeing it.
But it's having tremendous success just in written form as well. I shouldn't say just, I mean also in just the written form as well, correct?
Right. It just hit #1 on a few different Amazon charts this weekend.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
congratulations, man. This is a thing you've been sitting, I know, and fretting and knowing, all right, is this a thing that I just think is a thing? And I know my wife loves me and she thinks it's a thing, and people are coming and they're saying it's a great thing. And then
Right.
you get the thing where it's like, oh, people think it's a great thing. People I don't know, people not in my ward, people who don't even know me have now
Yeah.
validated this by allowing it to be there. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. That it's true. That is the validation. It's when the person who has no idea who I am from Ottawa, Canada, or Florida, or somewhere else, or somewhere around the world, they leave a review and say, "I love this book. I shared it with all my friends." I'm like, "Who are you? I don't even know you. I didn't pay you to say that."
Yeah. In the creation of it, I've sort of mentioned, and people will always do this. It's a dystopian, they like to put it in a
category.
in a category in a sentence.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about this, how much of the thought that, hey, one day my kids will enjoy this went into the work?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that was a big inspiration, was just the idea of one day I'd love to have this story to tell when they can understand it, and
Yeah.
in maybe 4 or 5 years, my 4-year-old's my oldest, and she would probably understand it better when she's maybe 9,
Mm-hmm.
9 or 10. It is a little bit, it's definitely a teenage book, 10-year-olds have been liking it too, if they're like advanced reader 10-year-olds.
Okay.
But really, it's kind of geared toward that middle school, high school age. And yeah, I would love for it to be even a bigger series by that point. All 5 books are done, and they can, maybe there's some movies made already for it. Where that's the goal, is to make it to a big budget film at
Sure.
some point. I mean, I love following the Lord of the Rings model of like, let's get our 500 million bucks and make all 5 movies at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that easy too. So I'm sure.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I figured you knew some billionaires you could just
Oh,
connect me
sure,
with right
sure.
now.
And some, we'll get them together and we'll present the project. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's incredible. So first one is done, receiving tremendous success out in the world, but you've committed to a 5-part series. That seems like
Yeah.
that's a lot.
It's daunting for sure. I mean, the only way to really embrace something like that is just to say one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I'm just going to do a little, and I like that the nice thing about having it open like this is I change up what I do every day. One day I'll just say I'm gonna work on chapter 4,
Sure.
and then the next day is like I'm gonna work on the overall outline, and then the next day will be I'm gonna work on this particular character's arc,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it today. And I love that variety of me being able to change and switch gears, because it just it scratches the itch in my brain every day of
Mm-hmm.
like that creative itch that I've got. Like, okay, today I can just do it this way, or today I'm gonna write a song. That's the other thing, is because it's a musical, I could just say I've got a groove right now. I'm just gonna run with this groove for a second, and
Yeah.
which character will sing this one, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of fun to have all those different angles to hit from, to produce this overall outlet and create the story. Like now we've got artwork to go with it, so people can see what the characters look like.
Yeah.
And there's we're working on music videos next. I want to get some music videos shot. We're gonna do some events, balls. There's gonna be these dancey balls, elegant balls that we're gonna go to that will introduce characters and things like that. And anyway, so it's a whole world building fun thing that we've been kind of maximizing now, and it is really fun to see the audience slowly growing, with new people saying, I've read the book, I finished it. And like the most recent one, even though it is my niece is not a reader. Her parents keep saying, like, we really want to get her to read more.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't really read that much, and she read my book twice already, and she read it.
Wow.
And then she consumed the audiobook in 2 days because she was so excited. And she's 14. She's perfect audience for us.
Yeah, perfect age to not like things. So that it's a real feeling that she did it twice. Like they're having a teenager say, "Oh, I like that." You're like, "What?"
I know, especially because it actually discounts you. Like when your family,
yep.
they want you to be uncool.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
So So for to be the cool uncle who has the book that she is excited and telling her friends about, we're gonna actually have her on some TikTok videos with my wife to do some videos together where she could tell people like what she likes about it and stuff. It's pretty fun to hear that too, just to see like, oh, it's making a difference on some people close to me too, where it's not just they're not just telling me that for my sake,
Mhm.
they're just giving me an honest opinion in response.
With anyone who works, their spouse is always tremendous support to them. I mean, you for her for you, but it's a little bit more with her for you within this book, in that she's a character.
Yeah, she's the inspiration for the main character, and she also right now dresses up as the main character. So we have a full costume and jetpack and everything else for her to wear. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, she goes on TikTok Live, and
Uh-huh.
she goes to her fan base, and she just talks about the book for 2 hours every time.
Wow. And how is that for her, for you, for her? How is that? What's that like? That seems like that is, hey, we have got to do this. This is us together. Let's go for it all together. How is that?
There are definitely the days where I have to encourage it, but most of the time she loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, but of course, like when you do something 3 times a week, you're always going to have those moments where it's like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this today. And
Hmm.
for me, I just remind her, consistency is everything with this.
Hmm.
Our viewership keeps growing when we do it consistently, and then as soon as she goes live, she sees all her friends again. These are all the
Yeah.
people that she keeps talking to, and there's like 40 or 50 people that keep coming back every time. And
Hmm.
so there's the usual audience. They've already bought the book, they've already read the book, they've already shared it with like 4 or 5 of their friends. They've already got like multiple copies. They're the super fans right now.
Hmm.
So she has a group of super fans that are really involved in this story, and they're growing a couple people at a time. With each live, we add maybe 1 or 2 new people to that
It's
group.
awesome.
So I just tell her like we'll keep doing this until we have 1,000
Yeah.
super fans, and then you feel like if you have 1,000 super fans, you're pretty much solid across the board. You can release just about anything, and it'll pay for itself.
Yeah. That's tremendous. What a cool undertaking, and have, the idea of your kids one day reading it and your wife working alongside you in the capacity that she does, and
Yeah,
this massive undertaking of a five. Do you ever wish you would have said three? It's a three-part series. Why didn't I say three? Why not four?
I
Why did I
know
commit? Why did I say five? Why was this the thing? You know,
exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
Shaun, there's three questions we ask everyone who steps into the cultural hall, and I will ask those questions of you now. The first question is do you have a calling, sir? And if so, what is it?
I'm the organist. I'm pretty much the permanent organist.
Yeah,
I've always had either the primary pianist or the organist calling. Sometimes I'll get the choir director. I usually try to push against that one as much
sure,
as possible.
sure.
Like I don't want it to be the choir director, but the organist and the primary pianist, they're like kind of my eternal calling. So
Now with the organist. So in my ward, I'm not sure who it is. I'm sort of new in my ward, but there is a like a world renowned organ teacher that is in my ward. So several of the people that
ah,
were born and raised in our ward are also still in our ward, and so we have like organ concerts with just singing the hymns, where they just go all pedals, both hands, diddle for the third verse or the fourth verse, the final verse. They kind of keep it straight. Do you get a chance to let that creative flow happen in, or do you keep it
oh,
pretty
I do. Oh
okay?
yeah, yeah. They knew what they were getting when they called me.
Yeah.
I even told them up front, like I need to add rhythm. I
Uh-huh.
need to add things to this.
Uh-huh.
It's a. I'll tell you later, okay? I need to. So the thing that I do always is the prelude on piano. That's my main thing. Is I love the organ too, but the piano is still my beast. That's
Sure.
my second pair of hands. And so when I do prelude, I just kind of go off and do whatever I want to play.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's an original thing. Sometimes I morph it into a hymn. Sometimes I'll play some musical piece like "Climb Every Mountain" might pop in there or something like
Mhm.
that. I feel like these are songs that are inspirational, so they fit. And then same thing with the primary, although the piano in the primary isn't as nice as the grand piano in the chapel.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I'll do a lot more in the chapel, and they always comment on it. Everybody, I don't mean for them to be for me to be showy about this or anything. I'm just trying to do my calling to the best of my ability and all that. But I definitely get a lot of praise for it. I feel like I like doing service where I don't get praise too, because I get a lot of praise for this service, and that's nice. It's great for them to do that, but I definitely make sure that I seek out other service opportunities too that are quiet, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
If you could pick a calling for yourself, this is question number 2. If you could pick a calling for yourself, whether that means making one up or picking one that already exists, what would you pick?
I mean, I actually would love to do a real choir with a stake, not like an auditioned choir,
Oh,
with like a multi-stake audition choir role. That would be more enjoyable to create, like that, kind of like what Gladys Knight has done in a way.
mhm.
Like that sort of thing where we can have some real rhythm and soul to it. I love that. I do love Baptist choirs. I mean, it's hard not to love Baptist
Sure.
choirs. And I would love to see if we could bring more of that into our church, more of that passion and soul and rhythm, you know.
Mhm.
But other than that, like, I mean, a calling that I would enjoy, I would actually enjoy doing some youth speaking, where maybe a counselor or something like that for the youth.
Mhm.
I do like speaking to the youth quite a bit.
Yep. That's coming as your kids get older, I guarantee it. I see, and what I'm pushing for as you were talking is I want a Barrowes family reunion tour where mom breaks out the lute and all the kids from all over the world you come and do all the stake centers in Spanish Fork.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's right.
the final question that we ask everyone, we ask you to interpret it however you would like, but the question remains: what is your favorite part of your faith?
I would definitely go with the music side of it. For me, music is an angelic language, and so when I compose and when I listen to music, I do it from a spiritual perspective,
Mhm.
and I do feel like it's a way for me to communicate. So for me, that's a spiritual. That's kind of how the Holy Ghost communicates with me, is through the music channels. Uh, Besides that, I do love how, I mean, the Book of Mormon gives that, some more specifics to it, because music can be very flowy and ethereal, and the Book of Mormon can be more concrete.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like that's the foundation upon which it all you know flows. And um, I mean, I guess there's a few little elements, but I mean, yeah, I would say the personal revelation that comes through music is my personal favorite, and I would say that's the foundation of that is the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Shaun, tell people if they want to read, or as you say, listen to the thing. It's created to be an audiobook. How we'll leave a link obviously in the show notes, but if people are just sort of listening to this and want to casually go after it now, tell them how they can get this book and be able to follow the updates and the things with your wife. Tell us where we can find you. Climb up on the Ramyamptum and tell us all of the things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you just follow at Shaun Barrowes, that's where we'll keep all the updates on. Instagram is where we do a lot of the posts. TikTok, Facebook. At Shaun Barrowes. The book, The Paradise Planets, it's on all the platforms. I prefer Spotify. So
Mhm.
if you're going to listen to the audiobook, we get paid more, and Spotify just treats authors better. So I would say go to Spotify and download it there. It is on Audible if you want to use that. Audible isn't as kind to authors, but we still, it's still something. So
Sure.
if you
Sure.
if you're already going to be using Audible, then yeah, go for it. But just look up the Paradise Planets on any platform that you use and download it that way. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. And then yeah, at Shaun Barrowes, or paradiseplanets.com is our website. Any of those things.
Yeah,
Yep.
do it. We'll leave links to all those in the show notes. Shaun, we hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, and that if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, we'll be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.